Hello, I'm David Kinder. I'm the head of the English department and I also am subject lead for English language and linguistics. It's useful to think of English language and linguistics as being a subject that's a halfway house between a science and a humanities subject. It teaches you to gather quite large amounts of linguistic data and to look for patterns in that data and then interpret those patterns based on the social, the cultural, the historical context of the text and of the data you're looking at.
Hi, I'm River and I study English language and linguistics at Godalming College. I chose to study English language because I really liked the people that surrounded the subject when I went in year 10 to have a look. I really like the variety, there's child language acquisition, sort of the history, and I thought that'd be really interesting to study.
I'm Taya and I study English language and linguistics at Godalming. I think for me, looking back, choosing to study English at Godalming was an easy decision to make. I don't think I can see myself doing any other subject and enjoying it as much. So really, I'm just slightly obsessed with it.
So we cover areas of linguistics that are a long way away from GCSE. So it's a good idea to think of it as a completely separate subject in some ways. For example, when you're studying how children acquire language, you might be interested in why it is that a child might invent a word like wasp bang for a fly swat, for example, or putting ed at the ends of verbs that don't normally take that ending, like swimmed. Is this maybe evidence that maybe our language is something that is not copied from adults, but is actually something that as a skill effectively that we're born with? We look at language in the real world, and one distinctive set of texts that we would look at, we would call them data, would be spoken data, so spoken language, where we might be interested in things like who holds the power in a conversation, or what do we really mean by what we say at a given point. For example, if I say, can I help you? Or if you say, can I help you? It could just as easily mean, I genuinely want to help you out of this situation that you're in. Or in some settings, it could mean you're in a place where you're not meant to be.
My favourite thing about the course is definitely child language acquisition. I find it really interesting how our language develops from such a young age.
I don't think I can say I love everything, but I do think it's like that. I love every bit of the course. But if I was to pick a particular module that I love the most, I think I'd say studying language change. As boring as it sounds, learning about how the language and attitudes towards its usage have evolved over time has proven particularly interesting to me. Studying coursework as well has been really fun. You get to pick your forte and sort of explore that in more depth, so I've really valued that we get to do that with coursework.
Now, a very popular area of the course is language in the media, where we will teach you how to appreciate that language use is never neutral. So in an article, for example, it would be a very different thing to call a group of protesters a crowd compared to the connotations if you called that same group, let's say, a mob, or if you called a young man a hooded youth compared to a young man. These all have different connotations and suggest things about the agenda of the text that we are reading. So a key element of the course is looking at how language changes over time. And in this sequence, the students have been asked to look at two texts on the same theme, which is about gardening, as it happens, that are about 200 years apart.
What did you look at? So we looked at passive voice. So we found that they both did have passive voice in it, but this one had slightly more because, you know, when it's an older text, you're trying to sort of make yourself look better, make yourself seem smarter, and kind of create that sort of like knowledge gap. So we've found have been judged, has been said, and then in this one we thought has found himself was passive voice, but then we concluded that it wasn't because himself is pronoun, so it couldn't be passive voice, but we did find examples like has been discouraged and have been lucky.
Is there more in that text then?
No, we think there's more in that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone gets inspired by some aspect of the course during the first year, and that will generally lead into their choices for their language investigation, which is part of the coursework. And in that, you collect your own data and you look at the patterns within it and you interpret those patterns given the social or the cultural context of the particular field you're working in. And then you would then write that up for both an academic and a general audience. So you'll also write journalistically about language and learn how to entertain and also engage an audience about some really quite technical aspects of linguistics.
The teachers at Godalming College, especially in the English department, are so helpful. If you need absolutely anything, they're willing to help you straight away. So engaging, so enthusiastic.
The teachers, I think, all teach quite differently, but very efficiently in their own ways. So it's difficult for you to ever be bored in a lesson. You'd always want to be involved. I think as well, if you have any concerns or queries, they will often, if not always, be able to answer them for you. So it's a very supportive environment, which means that you'll never feel out of place in a lesson, and I love that the teachers can guarantee that.
So it's a course that requires critical thinking and a forensic approach to data. And it teaches you skills that at the moment AI can't do. It could be a stepping stone on the way to becoming a journalist or a lawyer or a speech therapist perhaps, or working in the PR industry. There are all sorts of fields that it could work with, but it is also a very adaptable subject, which means you can do it alongside any kind of science or any kind of arts or humanities subject. So the way in which English language and linguistics perhaps differs from, say, English literature or English language and literature, those two other A-levels that we offer, is that it is really dealing with language in the real world. So I suppose you could say that it's setting you up for ways in which language is used out there in the workplace. And so a really adaptable subject.
After college, I want to do a solicitor apprenticeship in London. So that's so that I can become a lawyer.
After college, I hope to go on to study English at university so that I can take it through to the workplace and then carry it with me for the rest of my life.
So if the course sounds interesting to you, we hope to see you at one of our open evenings soon.